Welcome in. Welcome in. You all are in for a treat today. So, hope you got your pens and paper ready. And I want you all on the screen. Hey, Erica G, on the screen, I want you to show a sign as a welcome to Dr. Tracy as she get ready to lay this out for us. All right, self forgiveness and the power of self compassion. All right, let's get it. Go ahead, Dr.
Oh,
Tracy. Floor is yours.
thank you. So we're going to actually do this a little bit different than we did last week, but I do see a question about was the prior session recorded and any way to hear it? The answer is yes, and I will actually pull up the
Mhm.
audio recording from last week and I'll stick it inside of the chat when you all are thinking because I do have the link to that. So I will be more than
Okay.
happy to send that to you in just a second. One other one is that before I even continue, is that somebody asked last week about recommended books. I've already posted that inside of the chat. So you all have some recommended books that I definitely would recommend that you read or peruse, whatever speaks to your heart. Go ahead and get that, and you can have that as well. And I do
All
thank
right.
all of you all for being here because for me, self-forgiveness is a huge topic. And I think everybody at some point or other in our lives, we all have to work on some of that self-forgiveness. Last week, I kind of laid down the foundation of why we need to do so. And even talked about, how you know that you still need to work on some self-forgiveness. But because of time purposes, I want to kind of just jump right into today's one, which is kind of the steps or some of the models of uh, forgiveness. And we're actually going to take a few models and we're going to kind of combine them into what I think is the most important. But the main one is going to be based on reach. And reach is, I'm going to actually post it in the chat. Reach is recall the hurt. I'm going to actually pull that up. That's what the R stands for, recall the hurt. Hold on. First, let me do one thing at a time. Let me get you your link because I've already texted that to myself. And then
Wonderful.
and
And thank
then
you for that, Dr. Tracy, because I forgot to copy that link. Somebody asked that in a private message, and I've sent it to them there, but forgot to copy it to bring it here.
there it's in the chat for now. There you go. So the first one is recall the hurt. Then the next one, the second step is empathize. And you're empathizing with yourself. And so because this is self-forgiveness, it's actually called empathize with the offender, but it's not the offender that we're doing it, it's actually with yourself. Okay. So you got to show yourself some self-empathy. The third one is the altruistic gift. So you're going to give yourself a gift. And what I mean by that is, are you typing what I'm saying as well?
I was trying to. I missed the
Uh,
second
I,
one.
I already got it. It's
Okay.
the altruistic gift is an unselfish gift that you're giving to yourself. Okay.
Got it.
And then the C stands for commit. And that's going to make the commitment daily to forgive yourself. And then the H means to hold on to forgiveness.
Mm.
So, and that's probably the hardest part. So there it is. It's in there. So the reach stands for recall the hurt, empathize with your true self, the altruistic gift, give that unselfish gift you're giving, commit to doing the forgiveness, and hold on to the forgiveness. So we're going to actually, that is basically what we're going to focus on today. And because I said it, we're going to do things a little bit differently. Today, it's going to be a lot more self-reflection.
Okay.
I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I want you to think about it. And as Zara has said, hopefully you've got pen and paper because at this time, I'm going to give you some time to write it out. And at the end, after I've asked you all these many, many questions that I'm going to ask you about self-forgiveness, and hi Winston and Nicole who jumped in. I, After I've asked you these questions and after we've gone through the entire reach, we can always go back and talk about it. But because we do have 47 minutes left, I want to be able to get through it before we start talking. So I do apologize if we're not going to I'm not going to give you an opportunity to interact as much today, only because I want you to get these questions. So, recalling the hurt. What do I mean by that? This is the part that sucks. You have to sit in it. You've got to sit in that pain. You've got to sit in that hurt. And when you're sitting in that hurt, here's your first question. What are you saying to yourself? I'll give you a moment to think about that. What are you saying to yourself when you're hurting? The next part of that question is, how did you hurt yourself and others? To take that a little bit further, could it have happened even if the situation had been changed? Hi, Tamara, or Tamara. I'm not sure how you say it.
It's Tamara. Thank you for asking.
No problem. So could it have changed? Could the situation have changed? Okay. The next question, part of that question, that when you're sitting in, is what are the facts? Not what are you thinking? What are the actual facts?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Melissa. Okay. The next part of it. How much do you really hurt? How much is it you versus an expectation of how you're supposed to feel, or somebody else's pain that you're actually taking on to yourself? The next question. Hi, Felicia. The next question is, what do you feel and what did you feel? What do you feel now and what do you feel? Or what did you feel when it happened? Because you can feel totally different. And the most insightful question of them all, when you're sitting in this, is how are the emotions helping you now? What are those feelings that you have right now? How is it helping you? Hi, Brandy. Welcome. So that's part of recalling that hurt. And as you are thinking about these questions that I've asked, I want you to journal. Journal what has happened. Journal those answers. How did that offense and your reactions impact you? Because this is about self-forgiveness, I want you to think about how is it impacting you, not the people around you, you yourself. Clarita, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I missed one question. It was right after, could the situation have changed even if I did something different?
The question after that one, what are the facts? What are the facts? What are the actual facts?
Yeah, not what do we think?
Yes, exactly. Not what you think, what do you feel? It's what are the facts of what happened?
Thank you.
Through it all, I want you to remember you're hurting and it's okay. Because at this point, we need to make a conscious decision not to be a victim. We are not the victims. We have to decide that we're going to thrive and we're going to survive through this. And also, another question I want you to think about is, who do you think you are versus who you really are? Is there a disconnect about what your thoughts are about who you are versus who you really are? And part of that thought process is you've got to let go of that fantasy person of who you think you are and accept who you are for who you are. Be authentic. Be the true you. Clarita, do you still have another question? I see your hand still up.
No, I'm sorry. I'll take it down.
That's okay. I'm just want to make sure. I want to make sure I catch you. Welcome. I think it's Jane or Janie.
Jan, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tracy.
Welcome. I just asked a series of questions about recalling the hurt. Okay. Now, let's go to the next one. And the next step is the hardest step of all. Out of all the ones, I know you're thinking recall the hurt. It's not going to, hi Cheryl, that's hard. That's hard. But no, that's not the hardest step.
Oh,
Sorry. Man. I know, right? I suck. The hardest part is challenging those thoughts.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why it's harder. So when I say empathize with the offender, you're empathizing with yourself, because in this case, you are the offender. And remembering, when you look back at the situation, hi Christy, welcome. When you look back at the situation, you're looking back with 20/20 vision. Hindsight is 20/20. You can see everything. You can see the entire world for what it was at that time from your point of view. But when you're in it, you do not know, you're not able to see beyond your scope, beyond right there, in your blinders. That's all you're able to see. But when you look back, you can say, oh, wow, it was bigger than what I thought. So you got to think back. How are you different now compared to how you were then? What do you truly know now at this time that you didn't know then? Because remember, this is more a comparison, but this is a comparison of who you are today versus who you were when it happened. The next question you have to ask yourself is, why don't you deserve forgiveness? Another question, what were you trying to accomplish? Once again, you're not giving yourself an excuse. You're stating the facts. What were you trying to accomplish when it happened? What were your expectations? What needs were you trying to get met? And were they met? What power did you have to control the situation? And what does that power look like to you now? How have you changed? How do you see the world then versus how do you see the world now? Welcome, Drea. So those are some questions to learn how to empathize with the offender, empathizing with yourself. Because you have to, hi, welcome, Margarita. You've got to remember what you were thinking then versus what you're thinking now. Because thinking then, you've got a whole different process than what your thoughts are, what it is right now. And that's important to remember, because you're judging yourself now for behaviors that you did back then. And that's not fair. So to help to even with that process, so to help with, remember when I talked about recalling the hurt, is journaling what happened, to recall, to empathize with the offender. To be able to do so, you've got to write a letter to yourself, and writing that letter to your younger self. And that younger self could be at the very beginning. And you may not even know where that beginning is until you do some of these reflections that I've asked you to write or think about. Because you've got to recognize, when did the self-blame begin? And this could have been in childhood. When did you start blaming yourself? Once you start doing that, you also have to break down the situations one by one. You can't write a blanket letter to yourself at 9 years old and you blamed yourself for 10 things at 9 years old. You've got to say, at 9 years old, At this time, I blame myself for this. At this time, I blame myself for this. At this time, I blame myself for this. Because each situation is going to be associated, or I should say, are building blocks to that blame or that self-blame or that resentment that you held right now. So you want to be specific. You want to talk about the time. You want to talk about the day, the season, what you were doing before, after, during, the sequence of events. And then you have to look at, was this the first time that this has happened? Is there a pattern of behavior? How many times have you been hurt by others? And how many times have you hurt yourself? And part of this also will help you to uncover whether there's a pattern where somebody hurts you and you turned it inwards. Or it was an expectation that there was guilt that you've taken on, and it really wasn't your guilt to take on. And it's now a learned behavior. So we're trying to break that. In this letter as well, you want to express your anger. You want to express your disappointment. And then you also want to identify those red flags. What did you do and how did you feel? What could you have done differently? Could you have done something differently at the age of 9 versus could you do something differently at the age of 35 or 39 or 29 or even 19? Hi, Moni. Welcome.
25 in my instance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My
Yeah. Yes. Could you have done something different from 5 to 25? There you go. Hi, Amelia. Welcome. What are some of those red flags? What would you say to a close friend or family member if they were going through the same thing that you're doing to yourself? What makes you more critical of yourself than anybody else? A big question you have to ask yourself is this really true? Or is this an implanted memory? And when I say that is that somebody else has told you something over and over again, and it's not really your memory, it's their memory. But because they've said it so much, it's now become a memory that's not yours, it's theirs. Another thought to have is how much of your emotions are affecting your perception? How much of your emotions are affecting the way you're looking at things? That's where the facts come in. What are the facts? Also remember, no one's perfect. We strive to be perfect, but no one's perfect. So end the letter by giving yourself grace and forgiveness. Because the letter is not only about forgiveness, it's about healing, learning, and growing. And giving yourself that self-compassion to heal, to grow, to be the person you want to be. Okay, so we've kind of gone through recalling the hurt, empathizing with the offender. Now we're going to the altruistic gift. This is going to be shorter, I promise. So remembering one thing, self-forgiveness is an unselfish gift that you give yourself. And some of the ways you do that is positive self-affirmations. I'm wiser now. I'm stronger now. I'm better at recognizing now. I deserve whatever. I love me. I'm forgivable. Hi, Cherry. Welcome. So that's your gift that you've now given yourself. The next one is committing. So you're making the commitment every day not just today, not tomorrow, every single day, every moment that you recognize that unforgiveness is creeping up, you're making a commitment to forgive yourself. So if you have to write down, I forgive myself for blah, 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 blah. I forgive myself, and repeating it. Because forgiveness are actually conscious steps that we make to move forward. And they're baby steps. And sometimes baby steps are just too big. So you've got to crawl. Or you just got to roll over, whatever it takes. Because you have to forgive yourself one day at a time, one moment at a time, for one incident at a time. Okay. And finally, and then we get to talk, because I've talked enough. Hi, Kristen. Welcome. So next is hold on to that hold on to the forgiveness. Hold on to the forgiveness. Hold on to it like your life depends on it. It takes a long time to really believe and accept that forgiveness. But one day you'll wake up and realize you've forgiven you. And I've said this in multiple rooms before. In today's society, we are conditioned to believe the negativity in our lives. We have to make a conscious effort to move forward and say, I want to believe in the positivity. And by holding on to that forgiveness, you're repeating every moment that you forgive yourself. And you also want to remember to reread what you've written and add to it if necessary. Because as you start, here's a hi Joyce, welcome. Here is a hi Carla, welcome. Here is a clinical term that we always say, it's peeling back the onion. And peeling back the onion means is as you are opening up one thing or one layer, you may find that there's another layer underneath it. And if you pull back that layer, there's another layer underneath that. If you pull back that one, you're trying to get to the center. And as you're working on forgiving yourself, right now you may be only able to see that first layer of the onion. But as you go deeper and deeper, you'll find that you're forgiving yourself for deeper and deeper things. And each time you do it, it may be painful. It may take a lot, but you can get there. So those are kind of the steps those are just some of the steps that we could use. But those are some of the basic steps that we can work on forgiving ourselves. So for the ones that didn't hear, again, I have actually posted in a chat what we were talking about. Reach, which means recall the hurt, empathize with yourself, give yourself the unselfish gift of forgiving yourself. Oops, I misspelled that. C, committing to forgiving yourself on a daily basis, and then holding on to that forgiveness. And I've asked a series of questions, lots of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hear your thoughts on that before I even can go on to more, because I can go on more, but I did want to give you, that was very important for me today, to give you the steps at least to be able to work on some of that self-forgiveness.
Wow.
And welcome, Valerie. And I just see a question in the chat. The person whom we hurt is not willing to forgive us. Can we still forgive us? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You are not in charge of anybody else but yourself. So you can't make them forgive you. So why do you have to worry about them when you really need to be worried about you?
Mm.
And your forgiveness is worth more for your peace of mind than even them forgiving you, because that unforgiveness that they're holding on to is weighing on them. Don't let somebody else put their stuff on you. I hope that helped. Okay. Czar, come on, Czar,
Yeah.
bring it.
Listen, all of these questions right here. I'm over here crying. No, I'm just playing.
I was like, oh
These are
goodness.
some really powerful questions for reflection. I think, and I think honestly, even just hearing the questions, to me, what I felt, and I'm odd, but I'm an alien sometimes, or whatever. But just even asking the questions, I could feel the release. Not even quote unquote having to do any other work other than really just asking this question, and I can almost immediately feel a shift happening. So man, these are wonderful, and I know that folks have been writing, and y'all are ready to go at it. So, so what is coming up for you all? One of the questions that really stood out to me. Where did I started? I put a star by it. I thought I put a star by it. I guess I put a star by it in my head.
See?
Yeah, I guess I'll find it later. But you should see my. I'm not going to embarrass myself. I was saying you should see my note because I'm trying to write fast. I'll find it. But anyway, folks, man, was these good? Some of these questions. Have you ever asked yourself any of these questions? And what has jumped out for you? In this. I want to hear from you. Let's see what's going on through your head. What's going through your mind as we navigate this. Go ahead, Tracey. I see you.
I want to say to Dr. Tracey, I wrote down every single thing she said. I wrote it all down.
Can you share your notes? No, I'm just playing.
I'm about to put the questions inside the chat.
Go ahead.
I wrote it down because one of the things that really resonated with me that she said towards the end is hold on to the forgiveness. Hold on like your life depends on it. And so for me, writing down everything she said is going to be a new path forward for me when I ruminate over the hurt and stay in my self-pity. And I don't want to heal because I feel justified in the hurt or whatever. I am going to just look at my notes and remember that my life depends on this. It depends on forgiving myself and forgiving others. And so thank you so much for saying that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, that is a very powerful point. That hold on to it. I've said before, when we talk about forgiveness, sometimes you have to remind yourself that you've forgiven. And this is other people as well as yourself. It's like you have to remind yourself that you've done it because, again, something you said, Dr. Tracey. Oh, that's what it was. That it was a conscious choice. And oftentimes we think forgiveness is a feeling, and really it's a choice that's made. And I think all of these questions and these reflections help us to make that choice. So, yeah, right up, spot on, Tracey. All right, go ahead. Is it Jane? Janie?
Jan. It's okay.
Jan. Okay, go ahead, Jan.
Yeah. I find everything that has been said per everybody most definitely nourishing and powerful. I also, in doing this forgiveness work with self or myself, can I as well, I would think, simultaneously while that's going on, as a visceral happening and rearranging going on in my nervous system, that I can also take my other create another energy, go forth in myself to, while I start to do that work, put by other way, stab in the ground by with which it's not only of a meant to never happen again, but also start to ask for mirrors by with which to see that I really can get through and have better behaves, and people's come with me to validate I'm getting more empowered away from, getting empowered as well as simultaneously forgiving myself. I know that's a heck of a whole lot, but my head goes there. So, yeah.
So
things.
you're saying that there's empowerment that's happening at the same time that you're forgiving yourself?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Did that sum it up
Yes, it did. Thank
correctly?
you.
Okay. All right. Make sure I'm hearing your heart right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. I won't even say anything about that. Go ahead, Megan.
Okay, I got like probably the ending of that, but it was all in relation to I know exactly what you were saying, but forgiveness in getting a little angry and upsetting. I'm very sarcastic when it comes to calling bullshit out or holding people accountable for the shit they can't do, and it turns out all in relative that they can't do their job correctly. Correct. I was told that I have to do a grievance on this person because I believe that he is drinking alcohol at work.
Mhm.
I'm taking pictures of his car. A manager is drunk at work. Drunk at work. Drunk at work. And it's like, I'm trying to sound the alarm. I go, why would you let a manager run this place, but he's drunk half the time and not in the office? So I'm bringing this to his attention to the housing coordinator, and he's like, why don't you just do a grievance? And I'm like, I have to do 6 grievances. This is too much for me, and I'm 38 weeks pregnant. He's like, you can do it. Are you kidding me? So I was like, oh, Jesus. And I'm like, I'm not overwhelmed with what I have to do. Like, so, yeah, have birth to this baby, pretty much do jobs around here and implement it. Try to find a babysitter for the hours or short times. I'm thinking about hiring a Mexican nanny between the times that I need so that she knows how she can teach me.
Is this something that you're having to forgive yourself? Is there something here where you're having to forgive yourself for?
I'm forgiving myself for kind of like sounding the alarm and assuming everybody has COVID here. It could be the flu, but then I thought to myself, I was like, well, I can't panic because I could go into labor at any point in time, and
Okay.
so, like either a voice or an entity or Jesus told me, calm the fuck down. So
Okay. And so
I was,
you've had a
yeah.
hard time forgiving yourself for
I
raising
had a
for
I have a hard time, pushing the envelope and sounding the alarm and not anybody listening. I think,
okay.
and it comes off as me being, crying out to God and asking him, what do I do next? And
Hmm.
getting the answers from Jesus, because I was going to ask my fiance to help me pay rent. And then within 5 minutes later, I said, I'm sorry, I'm acting a fool and arguing with you. I go, and then I cried out to God. I go, forgive me for acting that way. And then I check my bank account, and I have enough to cover rent. My
Okay.
bonus came through, and I was like, oh my God, why does that happen? Like when I ask for money and I ask people to help me out, when they fail at helping me out, God provides money in my account. And I
Hmm.
was like, that must be a miracle. I'm like, and I got super
So
happy about it.
so
I got
where
super,
let
I
me
got
stop you for a
super,
second.
what,
I want to
what?
stop you for a second because I'm trying to find out where the struggle is with you.
It's
You
not a
know,
struggle. It's not a struggle. It's a powerful spiritual warfare, and I think that, forgiving myself should be forgiving myself for my behavior and my reactions, but it seems to be beneficial for with Jesus because I'm getting paid to do it, right? So it's like my
mm,
my compassion, compassion. I forgave myself long ago when I got pregnant with this child. I said,
okay.
God forgive me
Okay.
for having sex out of marriage. And
Okay.
now I got to go down a route with somebody to convince them that I'm not going to
Okay.
go after him for child support or kick him out
Okay.
or do all that
Okay.
messed up stuff. And
Okay.
it's like,
Okay.
yeah, and it's like to the point where it's just like I'm finding out these things that trigger him, and
Hmm.
he's
Well, I want to stop you.
obviously
I
all
want to
that.
stop you for a
Yeah.
second because again, this is being recorded, so I don't want
Mm-hmm.
you to say too much that's unnecessary. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
Well,
I don't want
well,
it to,
well, 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 the thing is,
and
yeah,
also I want to make sure that we stay on topic
yeah,
and that we get everything.
it is on top of it, but forgiveness from yourself, but do you
Hmm.
have to play the victim card the entire time? Because I forgave myself at the beginning of this pregnancy, and I'm still forgiving myself for my behavior and reaction and sarcasm, but people are taking, I'm not saying cuss words. I'm not doing anything. I said, you just really need to get off your high horse and stop acting like a child half the time, and people take offense to that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
So it
it's,
sounds like
I'm being
you're. It
silly.
sounds like you're holding. It
I'm
sounds
not
like you're
holding.
holding. it sounds like you're holding on to your forgiveness. Like you said, you forgave
Yeah.
yourself a long time ago. So
Yeah,
you're
I
trying to
did.
hold on to that
Yeah.
forgiveness that you have.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Cool. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. That's
It's
good.
good,
Thank you.
but
And
like,
if
and the thing
if
is
Well,
okay. If
I
I
want to
do
make sure that
blessings
we
and miracles within the
wait a
things that I
second.
forgive
Wait a
myself.
second. Wait a second. I want to make sure we get to everybody in the room. I want to make sure we're able to get to everybody. All right. Thank you for sharing that. And my takeaway from what you're saying, though, is that you're holding on, that you was able to hold on to your forgiveness. It seems like that's what you're highlighting. Welcome in, Caitlin. That's what you're highlighting, is that being able to hold on to the forgiveness that you've been given. At least that's what I took away. I might have missed it, but that's what we're kind of taking away from it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And then someone told me to be a badass bitch and fucking get my
Well, we
shit
don't want to
together.
do all of that right here. Again, like I said, remember, all of that's recorded. We don't want to have all of that on the masterclass. All right.
I know,
Thanks,
but
though.
like, yeah, I'm a boss
that
lady, and I'm just gonna get my
Okay.
shit together.
Here. Yeah. Go ahead, Bethany.
Hey, Czar.
Hey.
Okay, so I and Tracy, of course. So I just I wanted to talk about, if that's okay. Okay, self-forgiveness, okay, and having compassion. When after years of different types of abuse and then going through a
Mhm.
marriage that was unbelievable and traumatic for me, what
Mhm.
ended up happening was I I realized that, well, first how I forgave my parents was, I realized that if it
Uh-oh.
would have
Hold on.
been
Wait. You're
any other
breaking up.
child.
Give us that,
Ooh,
Bethany. Give us that last sentence one more time. You were breaking
can
up.
you hear me?
You were breaking up.
Okay, can you hear me over here?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
So if
Yeah.
it would have been any other child born and at the same time, that it wasn't because of me, that it wasn't because of me. And then today I was talking to a client about forgiveness because something happened to her, and she's 60 years old, and
Mhm.
she's really bitter. And I told her that the forgiveness is more for her, and to let to just let it go so she can be who she's meant to be. You know what I mean? Her true authentic self, which is love and care
Mhm.
and kindness and generosity, um and peace. And so that was the first time, and then when I this is what really got to her, when I said, but that doesn't change the fact of what they did, and that they
Mhm.
have to live with it.
Mhm.
So instead of, because she was saying, I hate myself, I'm like,
Do
it's not your fault,
Yeah. Do
so.
you apply these same principles to yourself? Because I hear this a lot. Like a lot of us, we one generally when we talk about the self forgiveness and we always use other like what we've told someone, what we've shared with someone, and what are we able to do that ourselves? Like are we practicing
Yeah.
these same things with
Oh
ourselves?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolute. I've
Yeah.
been through
Great. Great.
so much abuse in my life on so many levels: physical, emotional, psychological,
Hmm.
um and have come through all of this. And yeah, I mean, I could say there's areas I need to forgive myself for. Maybe when I was younger, didn't take care of myself the right ways, or didn't have the tools, or I wasn't self-regulated enough to catch the thoughts at the time, and why am I so dysregulated right now? Why am I so overreactionary? Why am I using food to soothe my pain?
Hmm.
And so I'm really still working through those things,
Hmm.
and starting to see the triggers when I do that. If I do go off a little bit, I'll say, you know what? So what? You did it tonight. You're not going to do it tomorrow. And that's what happened to me yesterday. I got triggered. And those are the
Hmm.
things I felt like I've been beating myself up personally for years internally.
Hmm.
Um, but, I just said, you know what? I'm going to process this. I'm going to sit with it. And then I'm going to talk to the person and just say, hey, this is how I feel. And this is I mean, I'm not going to share everything, of course, it's personal, but can you kind of let's navigate through this and try to, explain to me in a logical way so I can, you know what I'm saying, adjust my heart and emotions to what you just said and why, and
Mm,
without blaming
mm,
myself. So I think the piece of not blaming myself and not blaming others, and just
mhm,
knowing that, like with my parents, I forgave them in my 20s because I said to myself, well, if they would have known better, they would have truly done better, that I believe they're good enough to the core.
mhm,
And that if you would have taken any other person in my place, they would have done the same thing. So it wasn't
mm.
personal to
Okay.
me. And
Okay.
and that's what I shared with that lady, and she was like, wow, for the first time, she was like, wow, that really
Yeah.
did something for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oftentimes we don't see it all until someone else kind of mentions it. Looking at what Dr. Tracy laid out this whole model of forgiveness with the reach aspect. It's like, how many of you looked at this and was like, I never put this in this context. Someone was mentioning about it earlier. Put it in this context to be able to apply it, to my life. So some things they open our eyes, and then we're able to see. When our eyes are open and enlightened, then we can't unsee that, I think, and then we have to kind of follow suit with that. Go ahead, Karen, I see your hand. Karen, you might be muted if
Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry I came on late. Um, so when you ask the question about, okay, but do you apply that to yourself? That's where I'm struggling. Like, I'll just say my situation, then you can, maybe Dr. Tracy has some words, but like, so I am having a hard time forgiving myself for being judgmental. Like certain things that certain friends
mm,
do just gets on my nerves. But what I've realized is what really bothers me is because I'm afraid that that's the way that I am. But having noticed that, where do I go next?
Well, actually, it's interesting you said that because actually, when I was looking at some of my thoughts on self-forgiveness that I didn't share here, one sentence that I wrote, and you kind of almost touched on it, stood out to me, and actually I posted it in the chat while someone was talking. The idea of self-love. So what you're saying is that you're afraid that what you're judging others are what you don't like about yourself, which is actually typical. So the idea of that lack of self-love perpetuates the feelings of not being good enough, which then exasperates the inability to self-forgive.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
that is where, and I'm actually posting that in there because I actually wrote this down. I don't know how long ago that I actually wrote that, but that's what I've written down there. So your inability to self-forgive, actually comes from not feeling good enough for yourself. And where did that come from? So remember when I mentioned earlier, writing that letter to that younger you and being able to, and I've seen several people join. So welcome, Michelle, Brian, and I know somebody else was here and they left already, but welcome. So being able to work on that self-love, and the work on that self-love starts with being able to forgive yourself for the things that you could not have controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And those things that you don't like about somebody else, you've got to recognize, if that's something I don't like about me, then what are you doing to fix it? And I said this earlier, you are only in charge of yourself. You can only change you, nobody else. You can't change the situation. You can change the decisions you make right now. You can't change the decisions you made yesterday, 10 years ago, when you were a child, when you were a baby. You can't even change the decision you're going to make 10 years from now, because you
Mm-hmm.
haven't lived that time.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't lived life to know what decisions did or how your decisions will be influenced in the future. The only choice, the only chance, the only power you have is now. And the only person you're in charge of is you. And we can say, well, I've got kids, I'm in charge of them. In reality, they're human beings. They make their own choices, whether or not we like it.
This is the truth.
So the only person you can influence is yourself. But when you're walking that positive path, you are influencing others. You're positively influencing them. When you're holding on to that negativity, you're negatively influencing others, even if you don't realize it, because you are reflecting that negativity. You want to reflect positivity. And if you're not forgiving yourself, how do you expect somebody else to forgive you?
Mm.
The
Wow.
love starts within, the forgiveness starts from within. And you have to find that feelings of good enough. Nobody else can give it to you. Only you can give it to you.
Wow. Selah. I see a bunch of hearts though. Like that's one of them resonating things where everybody says, "Oh," when I usually say, "Oh, we're quiet," and they say, "We're thinking." I see Cynthia's hand. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Hello. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is my first time in the self-forgiveness, the power of self-compassion. I thought I already knew who I was. I thought I was pretty solid in my footing on my authentic self. But I have suffered from some narcissist abuse and domestic violence abuse. And now that I'm finding out that my body is holding on to the trauma of it all, my counselors are suggesting that I give myself, go through some self compassion.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought I had already handled that. I mean, I thought I already knew. I know that uh, I know what my purpose is in life. I thought I knew all of that. I thought I knew where I was going. I know that I'm put on this earth to be a servant. I know that I'm a child of God. I'm a child of the King. I mean, I'm so clear. I'm spiritual. But yesterday, my therapist was telling me there's some disconnect between the trauma and my authentic self because I'm being triggered, or that's a term we're using these days, being triggered by the narcissist. And when we start talking about it in a therapy session, I begin to shake.
Mm.
So my body is holding on to something, or there's a disconnect somewhere. I thought I knew who I am. I know who I am. I know where my purpose is in life. And I thought I had all of that taken care of. But now as of today, I'm not even clear who I am,
Mm.
where I'm going,
Let me stop you.
or anything. I am like lost in the sauce.
Let me stop you right quick. When people say they don't know who they are, yes, you do.
I thought I did.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Because you've gone through trauma and drama, why do you now think that you don't know who you are? There may still be things that you need to process and release. And like you said, you've had some abuse. And so what did you do with that? What did you do with the energy of that? And is there somewhere, like we're talking about self-forgiveness, is there somewhere in here where you're blaming yourself for what you went through? Somewhere where you're blaming yourself for what you've gone through? Is that possible? Is that possible that
I
may be
thought
what's
I
going
was
on? Not
rid
an
of all
issue.
that. I thought I
Hmm?
was rid of all. I thought I was done with it all
Why did you
until
think that?
just now it came back up with another narcissist situation. And
Mm,
now it's like all of it is all over me. And it's like it's affecting it. It went from like the anxiety of dealing with it to
mhm.
now I feel like because my body is shaking. It's the trauma. It's turned to trauma, and it's something I didn't get somewhere in there, but I don't know where it is. I don't know how to give myself. I love myself. I
Yeah.
mean, I wake up in the morning saying, "Hello, gorgeous." I mean, I'm clear. I thought I was clear.
Yeah. If you see in the chat, you see in the chat all of the steps that Dr. Tracy put out for self-compassion. I would encourage you to kind of just look at some of those and just reflect on some of those questions in there. She laid out today for us the reach model, and which again for everybody is in the chat, but it's recall the hurt, empathize with yourself, give yourself an altruistic gift, the altruistic gift, commitment to that, and then holding on to that forgiveness. Go through. I don't know if you heard most of this, Cynthia, if you was able to write down some of the reflection questions that she asked,
I
because
did.
you did. Okay, so go through some of those questions and just kind of sit with them and really see if there's something in you that you're needing to release, something in you that you're needing to forgive about yourself. This is not indication that you don't know you. All
Thank you
right,
for
so don't
saying
even
that. You know
put that
what? I
in your
really
brain.
appreciate that. I really
Hmm.
appreciate you saying that, because at this point, with my counseling and everything, I'm just like, well, who?
So
Okay,
what?
because I
Let me tell
thought
you
I
what he
knew.
meant. Let me tell you what the counselor meant by disconnect. Potentially to disconnect. When we go through certain things, when we have abuse, when we have done things that we oftentimes can separate from the acquaintance with our most authentic self. Trauma has a way of pulling us away from sometimes has a way of pulling us away from our authentic self. And then so we develop personalities in order to deal with it, or we develop this how we're going to be in order to deal with it. And yet the heart still didn't get a chance to speak and grieve. And so sometimes what you may be feeling like the body is keeping it, it may be you needing to go through the whole grievance process of the things that have happened to you. And it may be, like we're talking today, maybe some areas where you're holding something about yourself, maybe somewhere where you need to apologize to you, maybe somewhere where you need to forgive you. And it's your authentic self that brought you in this room. All right. So really accessing all of these things that Dr. Tracy laid out, and everybody, please, please, please take these seriously. Read through these things. Like I said, just reading through them as she was saying them, I felt release in me. And I'm generally good, folks. I'm
But
generally good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
real quick, for Cynthia, I actually put two names of books inside of the chat for you. One
Hmm.
is What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey, and it's a really easy read, but that might help explain something. And also, when you're talking about the way your body's holding on to trauma, another book that is The Body Keeps the Score by Louise Mays.
Yes.
So both of those are like books that may actually help you to make that connection again, and make that connection with you versus what has happened in your life into why you are having reactions at this point. So that may help as well in the process of self-forgiveness. I also have listed if you all want to screenshot this, because once we are gone, it's gone. I put names of books inside of there. You've got the techniques on there. I've asked the series of questions that I did ask. They're also inside of the chat. And also what you're writing for in regards to the letter to yourself is also in there. And I did see somebody else's, something that Jane wrote, some of the forgiveness in me just hasn't moved out of my embodied process because I needed to rage out. I needed to rage out without doing anything to anyone, internal or external. So listen to the audio from last week as well, and which is also inside of the chat, because that also talks about why we do need to release it and don't want to internalize some of this unforgiveness, this resentment, because we don't want to do damage to ourselves. But I do know we're out of time, so I'm going to shut up and turn it back over to Czar.
Wonderful. Wonderful. How many of you enjoyed this today or really took something away from it? Really got some things that you can really utilize in real life in your life. Folks, don't just be in here writing stuff in these notes and don't use this in your life. Right? In here getting fat with knowledge, and then we don't put it together and we don't apply wisdom. I wish everybody wisdom on how to navigate this and how to navigate these things. The power of self-compassion, that's to be with yourself. Right, to really be with yourself and hold on to yourselves through all of these things that we face and that we've been going through in life. Listen, this series we've done 2 weeks on this. It's been a wonderful series. Dr. Tracey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. And man, whoo, it's laid out. Anybody else got just a whoo?
And before I forget, welcome Ash, welcome Proud, welcome Michelle, welcome Cindy, and welcome anybody else welcome Valerie. I don't think we've said any of your names. So welcome to all of you all.
Welcome.
And I hope you all have a great night.
Right. I was gonna say it's almost like welcome and bye. No. But yeah, folks, please leave a review for this session. Let us know how it was for you. Those things are very helpful for us on Circles and knowing what kind of content to bring to you all and the kind of things that you and how you're being helped. Right. It's really important. All right, for us to kind of continue with this. All right. So I will see some of you next week. Happy New Year to everybody. And then I'll see some of you next week with the masterclass. We'll be here with Mike. Some of y'all already know Mike, and we're wintering into wellness or wintering to wellness, I think is what it's called. So look out for that session starting next week. And we'll be doing that one for 4 weeks, I believe. It'll be a 4-week series. All right, folks, I will holler at y'all later. Don't do nothing I wouldn't do on a Friday. Wait to Saturday to do it. All right, folks.
Thank you. Yay. This rocks.
Thank
Do
you
it
all.
again. Do it again.
Yeah, shall do. Peace, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Dr. Tracey.
Thank you, Czar. Have a good one.
You too. I give a couple of y'all a few minutes if you need to copy something in the chat before I shut it down completely.